Hey, welcome everybody to my first video ever on YouTube. And I guess this channel I pre-named as The Daily Wick, obviously because of candlesticks. Just to give you a background, I have knowledge basically of finance. I've been in and out of the market over the last 20 years. Used to be a stockbroker many years ago. And I am now going to start dedicating time to just strictly focusing on day trading and swing trading. Um, and I guess in the process, I felt that by creating videos, it will create an opportunity, A, for me to create accountability for myself, an opportunity to share with people that are uneducated, because it can seem confusing, although it's really not. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. It's a more visual process. For me, technical analysis, and we'll get into that later. Technical analysis is very important. And I would say that I tend to focus, when I see a chart, I tend to look at a chart and I'm able to get an idea. Perhaps it's my education over the last 20 years of a market direction. I don't claim to be a guru, a stock guru. That's not what this channel is for. I'm not here to lead you in a direction, make you believe that you're going to make millions tomorrow. That's not going to happen. I believe in order to be a good trader, you need to dedicate time and effort. And a key component of being a successful trader versus a good trader is, if you ask me, it would be discipline. Being disciplined on your trading skills, and I think that typically it's probably the hardest challenge for anybody that has been in the industry. It's probably one of the most difficult challenges to be self-disciplined, because there's so many fears. You have fear of missing out on a trade. For example, you get into a stock and it's going your direction, but your like heart is pounding, and excuse me for a second, and you tend to feel like I gotta sell here because just in case. That's that's all discipline related. So today, I guess the focal point, and I think on a daily basis, is really my goal. Although it may be difficult, it is my goal to be able to post on a daily basis, basically the stocks and the charts that I'm looking at. We can discuss patterns, etc. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start with Palantir, which happens to be one of my favorite stocks here. I'm going to remove some of the.
All right, so let me put this into
If you hear that in the
perspective really
background, that's
quickly
just something
here.
I'm listening to. But I'm going to remove a lot of the
All right,
settings
so
a lot of the
here is where we are,
support resistance lines and
and you
some of the
tell. Okay,
indicators that I have
here's an
currently.
exercise. This can be like a
Let's just
Rorschach
take a
test,
look.
right?
Let's just
But
pause.
I'm gonna
Let's
just
do
put this
this.
out
Let's
there
just
now.
make it
We
blind
talk
for right
about
now.
kind of just continuing to move to the upside. All right, here is the chart. Right, and look, there's no right or wrong answer. It's left up to interpretation. That's not
Hold
what I'm
on
trying
just
to get
one
out of this.
second.
But here is the
And then
chart,
there's a
right?
linear
So you've got a
regression
big
channel, which
rising
is something
wedge.
okay.
We broke out of that in early
I
August. That was the
have
reason for your August move. And
a.
then lately, you've had a
We are.
rising channel
I
that we
tend to go to
just
the
broke
monthly
out
chart
of again.
first. I'm going to
That
remove all
we
my
broke out of
lines.
that on the 2nd of
Hold on
September when
just
we
one
had that
second.
last down day. Now, I
Remove all
mentioned
my
yesterday
drawings. Let's just put it that
that
way.
if you look at a 4-hour chart
And
of
now we're going
SPX,
to take a
all that
look
we had done
at
on the 4-hour
the
is
stock.
come
This is
down
a
to
monthly.
4-hour support, i.e.,
This
the
is a
34.
monthly
Okay.
chart,
So
basically
if you
telling
take a
you.
look at what is going
Just give
on
me one second.
here,
Let me just drown that out for a
it's
second.
very reminiscent of, and I would argue that it is very.
Okay. Um, we're looking at a monthly chart of Palantir right now. That's the first stock that we're going to talk about. We're going to use lines to indicate support resistance levels. Um, I'm using right now just to give you an idea. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'll try to address them as best as I can. We're gonna put some. We're gonna put some lines in here. Hold on just one second. This line basically gives me a support resistance level, and we create this line by looking at roughly where the most touches were for a period of time, and the relevance of that at a later point is you'll be able to see it. It's going to be harder in the more uh, in, let's say, the monthlies or the weeklies, but it's good to point them out, the support resistance lines, because when you do identify them, showing them up on a daily, is very, it's what do you call it? It's very significant. Hold on just one second. Let me remove this. It's significant because if it's showing that you're at a monthly or a weekly resistance, and it shows up on a daily or support level, and it shows up on a daily that you're at those levels, well, that's a good thing, because you want to keep an eye on that stock, and decide, have your price levels created so that you can create alerts to let you know if it should cross over. And we'll get to that shortly, because on Palantir there is one that it's on a short term, that I'm currently looking at before I believe it's going to break new highs. So this is the first level, 35.91. We're going to go and take another one. And I'm going to put the second one over here. Uh, Come on. This should be here. The reason I'm showing you this instead of doing it pre-advanced is because I want you to have an idea of what it is exactly that I'm doing, so that you can apply it for yourself when you're looking at charts. Again, you'll notice that, let me just change my pointer. You're going to notice that, in these levels, you're going to notice that these are areas of points where they tend to be tested. You see these wicks that went through this particular price range of 67.02. Well, it did test those, and as you can see, it stayed above it. And so the next level would probably be somewhere around here. Again, its significance is because of the fact that, that this is a monthly chart that we're looking at, and you're going to see how it's going to play out more in weekly, daily, etc. So now that we have those plotted, we also want to take a look at what we look at is a trend. Um, so I'm going to hold on just one second. I'm gonna try to squeeze this out of drop. Okay, so I want to draw a trend line from the bottom, or from near the bottom. So I'm going to use this area right here and use that, as a area of support based on a trend. And you can see it hugged this trend, came up from the trend. Um, it wicked out a little bit below this trend line, but then really continued very strong. We're far away from where, the trend line is currently, but that's okay. Sometimes it happens to be a particularly very hot stock right now, and you tend to see that, so you can kind of guess the type of volatility that you're going to have in this type of stock when you see that. And again, it's a relatively baby company when it comes to being on the. It trades in the S&P and the Nasdaq, and it's not really a baby company. It was around way before it went public. They did go out of SPAC. They got punished for it. But at the end of the day, it's a really solid company. So now we have these, and we're going to take a look at a weekly, and we're going to kind of zoom out for a second. We can see our support resistance lines right here. And we have the first one at this level here. Well, actually, we have more below, but we have this level of 38.96. We have this level of 67. You can actually see how well these levels. You can adjust it once you're in the move from the monthly to the weekly to get uh, a better line. You know, which where touching the bottom of those candles to ensure that you're getting a good support resistance level. Then you have the next level, 88.32, and then you have this trend line, which we discussed how it's trading within this trend line, at least currently. There's a shorter term trend line over here. Again, don't forget this is a weekly, so each one of these bars, these are candlesticks, each one of these bars represent an entire week of trading. Previously, we were looking at the monthly, each was a month. This is a weekly bar. So we could assume that from this area to this area is pretty significant in the fact that these are weekly uh, candlesticks. So it gives us an idea of what it's not a short term jump that the stock had. This was over several months. Let's take this. Forgive my Oz because you're going to hear a lot of them as I get more and more comfortable with this channel because this is really the first time I've ever done something like this where I've exposed myself to YouTube. But I think it's a great opportunity to be able to share, educate, and perhaps even learn from others out there. And I really do hope that you guys gain from this. Anyway, so as you can see, I created another short term trend line where you can kind of get an idea of where the support levels is. Every week, this touch. We had a breakout. This was actually right after earnings. They had a solid quarter, an amazing quarter, which is actually really in the history books, if you ask me, turning so fast into a fast growing, I wouldn't call them cloud software, but more AI developed. And we can get into what Palantir does. They're a really hot AI company right now. Anyways, so we have that now. So we have these two support resistance. We have these resistance and the support lines that we have over here, as well over here. By the way, typically, so if a stock goes up, you see over here on this trend line, it's very nice. It broke out of this 38.96. It hit the 67.02. It had a little struggle, came back into the prior resistance, which is now should be support, and it actually bounced off of it, and etc. As you can see, it works its way up. Now that we've done the weekly, we can actually take a look at the daily and see what's going on. So we had a area over here from around the earnings area where we gapped up from 160.94 to approximately 168 and ran to approximately 190. I was actually sitting with my son-in-law. I was telling him, I think in a general rule, if you take a look at most charts, gaps are filled. Sometimes you have the rare circumstances that gaps are not filled, but for the most part, you'll see gaps that are filled. And this is particularly one of them. This was a nice gap, an $8 gap, ran to 188 or 190, that level, came back down, filled this gap, tested the trend line, as you can see in this daily bar. We had a nice bounce off of the trend line, and now, as you can see, we've been consolidating in this area. And there is a tool over here which we could use. Let me just find it. Rah, rah. Maybe in brush, I'm not sure. Hold on. Um, let's do a parallel channel. No, we don't want parallel channel. Do we want parallel channel? Let's see. I guess we could do parallel channel. And I'll explain this momentarily. Just want to set it out. So now here, if you notice, we came in, we gapped up over here after earnings. but we had a period of consolidation really over here, and we're starting to see consolidation right now. What happened to my volume over here? Huh. I will get that back in a moment. Anyways, so you have an area over here where it is consolidating. We like to see that after you have these parabolic moves, we want to see it settle. We don't want a high flyer stock. Typically when you find something that moves parabolically, it doesn't last that long, and many times it will actually not just retrace how it moves, but go lower, depending on the company you're investing. I tend to want to focus on solid companies that we could take advantage of the volatility and looking for areas of significant areas of support resistance where we could trade off of them. So this is actually an area right here at 160.78. I would even go to 163.20, which is the top of the wick for this candle. This candle right here. You see the two wicks as I'm pointing to it. And this top of this wick is about 163.26. So that's an area that I actually would set an alarm at alert at PLTR at the crossing of 163. I would maybe make it 163 just to have some ample time, and we only do only once. We want it to price crossing. Let's just change this. Okay, that's good. Value message Palantir, alert name Palantir, and we'll do Palantir crossing of consolidation for from gap fill. And we'll create this so like this when there are different options over here. You can notify in the app. I don't want it to send me an email. I definitely want it to play sounds. You can send me a text also and create. And so now I have an alert, and you can see that alert right here. It's marked out over there. But I have an alert at that high that should it break, I want to be in. I tend to play options. I want to look for a closer to current expiration call to take advantage of that move, because I would expect it to probably retest this area about 170. So that's a key focus point that I want to. That's an area of content. That's an important area for us to look at. Should we get that cross, I think that we will see volume come in. I think today we've discussed Palantir, and we've discussed about importance of placing your support resistance lines so that when it comes to, I mean, let's give an example. Let's take this down to a 4-hour line, and you can see how it's trading in this range, and it had traded before earnings. In this range, we had every one of these candles represent a 4-hour. It represent 4 hours. So we were trading in this range. We had broken out based on earnings, which was beautiful. We had this gap over here, which you can see in a 4-hour only because we're showing both pre-market and aftermarket. And then we had that high, and now we came in and we're consolidating. And again, this is the area that I would be looking at. Now, obviously, on the flip side, should we get a cross below, um, I would say you have the 149.69, or you have really, because it did test this area, which if you notice, this candle was right at that trend line support that we put over here in the monthly, I'm sorry, on the weekly, where each one of these represents. So you could see that trend line now. If we go back to a 4 hour, you could see that it hit that trend line and bounced right off of it. And we have been consolidating. So the likelihood of it breaking down, probably not, because AI is in favor right now. So I'm really looking for the long versus the short. Obviously, if the market changes patterns and we come in a little bit, then I may consider a short. But right now, I think it's setting up for the long. And you take a look at a 5 minute, we're still a ways from that area that we're looking at. We're still in that trading range. And so that's the first stock. I'm going to end off here. You're a moderator. My name's Akiva, and this is my first YouTube video. What we're doing here today is just discussing basic support resistance lines, understanding them. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the messages. And if you did enjoy this information and you look forward to more, please click and subscribe, and like the video, and we'll try to bring you more content. I really appreciate all of you that watched this video, and I hope that we can bring more content. But today, our main focus is on support resistance levels and how you plot them in your charts, and understanding the significance of the time frame, because something that happens in a 5 minute time frame is going to be insignificant compared to something that's showing up on a daily, weekly, or monthly. That's why it's very important that you spend time, if especially if you're trading or even swing trading. It's very important to have those key levels so that you can play off of them. Thank you again for joining the Daily Wick, and we'll see you tomorrow.